आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So before we begin the third verse of the Gyanankusham, we finished verse number 2 last week. I'd like to just briefly touch upon an email sent to me by a student, Srinivas Singhavarapu, and he asked the following. He says that I saw your class regarding the ahankara. You remember we had said the story where the Raja, the king, was negligent and didn't know that his kingdom was being taken care of by some corrupt prime ministers and other ministers. And there the prime minister was the ahankar, was the main person. So there in that story in our life, the person, which is really a personality, if you look at it in detail, if you analyze it, the entire me is really a personality. But it has a kind of a focus of the person as being the person. It's an alternate person. It's not the real person. The real person is only one real person, which is the Brahman, which is Atma. But in any case, the projection in this life, erroneous as it is this person called me. This is the Pradhan Mantri, this is the Prime Minister who is in charge of all of the things around that I have to utilize. So it is very much like, I think we had given that example, that the Raja can appoint certain bosses for various villages, and in that village, that person that he has appointed becomes the representative of the Raja, and he becomes the main person. He's the one who tells everybody, you've got to do this, why didn't you do that? So similarly in our life also, we are that person in the village of our life. So this we had already seen. So now based on that, Srinivas asks, my understanding that ahankara has to be pretended but not subsumed by it. So he's saying that my understanding is that I have to pretend my ahankara but not be swallowed by it, subsumed by it. We need to have or pretend ahankara for worldly transactions, as long as I have to do sharira yatra and fulfill our duties. So he's saying that we have to have the pretend ahankara. We cannot completely get rid of it to take care of the daily transactions of our life and so on. And yes, it is generally correct. So he said, can you please spend some time on it and discuss this whole thing? So I thought I would do that. Instead of just replying to him with the email, I thought I would take this opportunity. It's a good question to discuss it in the class itself. So we will begin by doing so, and then we will switch over to the Gyanankusham. So let's look at what the nature of the ahankara is. And by the way, this is also called Vijnanamaya Kosha. In the Panchakosha Vivaranam, at various places, especially in the Taittiriya Upanishad, when we have Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. So Kosha means a covering. Kosha means the covering of a sword, for example. Here the covering is due to ignorance. So there are 5 types of errors that one makes. This is what is called a kosha. So in that range of koshas, Vijnanamaya Kosha is the ahankara. How? Because really everything is managed by you, the ahankara. You and I, the ahankara, we manage our life. We are the bosses, like the boss of a village. We are the bosses. And so this is called Vijnana. So the Jnanamaya Kosha is the Manomaya Kosha. So you employ the mind as an instrument, as we do, to conduct our life. Should we go there? No. How about here? Yes. Like that, decisions we make through the mind. But overseeing that is the ahankara, the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Also similar to that, in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna starts with the enumeration of Kshetra and Kshetrajnaha. So he says that you have a field of observations in front of you to deal with, to contend with, to manage. And the person that does it is called Kshetrajnaha. The combination of manaha, vijnana, all those kinds of things. But the person is the Kshetrajnaha. And then he says that the Atma is really none of those. It's something different to that. I think another way to look at that is that this is the person who is the dream character working through the various aspects of the dream. So in the dream, we acquire a temporary identity as the dream character. And the dream character has very similar experiences as in the waking state. You're also bothered, you're also happy, you're also wondering, you are forgetful, all those kinds of things that you and I go through. We, in our waking state, we also have the same thing in the dream. So that dream character, the kind of like a quote unquote you, is the ahankara in the Jagrata Avastha. So this is the ahankara. Okay, so now set aside that definition of ahankara with some discussion of what it is for a minute. Let's now pay some attention to this very important concept that I find that is one of the keys of really making progress, is the nature of prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma. So as you know what prarabdha karma is, that from our countless past lives, we have done some actions based on whatever knowledge I have. Just like in this life also, you are contending with your situation, and based on whatever your capabilities are or non-capabilities, forgetfulness, knowledge, ignorance, you do the best you can. And so there are some past karmas, even in this life, that you are influenced by. This is what is called vasanas. But before you got in this life, there is a huge storehouse of karmas that have not yet fructified. They are not yet fructified. As you know, what happens is that the karma phala has two components to it. I'm just nothing new. You already know all of this, but I'm just bringing it in as part of the discussion. So there are two components to a karma phala, the results of the action. One is the immediate result, and the other one is a more subtle stored result that may not fructify for a while. Typical case is that we just had this huge violence in Sacramento, and so as a result of that, lots of shots were fired, 6 people were killed. That is the immediate result. And it so happens that the perpetrators are absconding. They have not found them, and hopefully they will find it. And so the karma phala for this dastardly action has not yet been given. And there's a possibility that in their entire life it may not be given. There was a recent case, for example, where somebody had murdered a woman in California back in 1983 or something. So 39, 40 years have gone by, and they finally found him somewhere in Atlanta or somewhere. And he's an older person, and so they finally caught up with him. But for all this time, that karma phala result had not yet been taken place. So anyway, what I'm saying is that everybody is in that situation. We have a huge amount of stored karma called sanchita karma. So chita means chit. Chit means to collect. Samchita means samyak chit, means it has been well collected and it has been hung in your cubicle by Ishvara. You cannot get rid of it. It's yours, and it is somewhere in the platform of karma phala that will come. Anyway, out of the sanchita karma, then there is a decision made as to which of the sanchita karmas will fructify in this life. Because it's a huge storehouse of sanchita karma. Not everything can really be consumed in this life. So a portion of that is taken up in this life. We will actually go this discussion. It's a very important discussion on this verse number 3 for the Gyanankusham. It just so happens to be they're related. So anyway, so that is what is called prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma, as you know, means that it will happen, whatever has to happen will happen. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is to be aware that things are going to happen in your life. You and I may not be aware of it, but Paramatma is aware of it. The probability of things happening, you can make some changes to it. You can say, for example, If you eat well, you will live a little longer. If you don't eat well, your life will be shortened. So you have a little bit of choice, but not much, because whether you eat well or don't eat well also depends on your previous karma, how wise you are or unwise you are. Really, everything is nothing but prarabdha karma which is going on. Okay? All right. So this is okay. So now, until you are introduced to a level of truth which is higher than the transactional truth, because everybody is born into a transactional truth, vyavaharika sat, which is the unfolding of the prarabdha karma. That's what it is. Transactional. Whether you're going to get married, whether you're going to have children, friends, jobs, all vyavahara. So here, so now we can close the gap between the introduction of the ahankara in the beginning and the introduction of prarabdha karma now. So for an ajnani means the one who is not yet introduced to a higher level of reality than the transactional reality. A paramarthika satyam, natu vyavaharika satyam. So if you are just at the vyavaharika satyam, vyavaharika sat, transactional reality, the ahankara plays a transactional role. So in that sense, if you can listen to this carefully, in before you become aware of a higher level of reality through the teaching called Paramarthika Sat, before that time, the ahankara is your best friend. Your best friend. You are your best friend. Hopefully, if you have a mind which is really giving you problem, you are not your best friend, but hopefully you are your best friend. You are the one that knows your own body very well, the diseases of the body. Others can help to a certain extent, but you are in charge of your life. So up until the time you are an ajnani, the ahankara is more or less very friendly. Right? We are okay with that up to this point? After you become a jnani, and by jnani I don't mean that you become a jivan mukta yet. So this is paroksha jnanam, natu aparoksha jnanam. This is what is called sort of like an introduction to the whole topic, but not mastery about the whole topic. Another way to look at that is there is Brahman, is paroksha jnanam. I am Brahman is aparoksha jnanam. So there is a step involved in doing so. But if you are at least a paroksha jnanam, jnanavan, if you have at least been introduced, we call you a jnani. And I would say all of you that have been attending classes for several months, unless you are a brand new person, which I think most of you are not, all of you are not, I would consider you to be a jnani. So, if you are a jnani, which means you are aware of a higher level of reality to yourself than the transactional reality. in that case, the same ahankara that was friendly to you, it's kind of like, the king, the Raja, who had carefully selected a Pradhan Mantri, a prime minister out of all the people and he said, you look like you can really handle the thing. You become the prime minister. So the prime minister was friendly to him up until the time that he discovered there is something higher. There is something wrong with the picture about how my kingdom is being run, and people were taking advantage of it. They were saying that there are animals that want your... In other words, they were corrupt. They were corrupt. And then you are aware of a higher level of truth. Maybe not in that example. But in our life, because you become a jnani, the same ahankara which was friendly to you now becomes, I wouldn't say enemy to you, but an obstructionist to you. And this is hugely discussed. There is so much literature on how this happens. Lack of understanding, because the ahankara will say, what higher reality are you talking about? Who are you been listening to? This is part of the obstruction. Okay, now I do understand what you're talking about, but you know what? It's too difficult. Forget it. Another kind of obstruction. Yes, I'm trying to help you, but I'm tired. Another kind of obstruction. So the same ahankara who you were depending on for transactional purposes becomes an obstructionist that you have to really deal with. And you have to really keep under control and say, shut up. I know what I'm doing, and you need to follow me. I'm the one that appointed you, and I'm the one that can take you away, and you will also have a wonderful life for a while, but do this for me. So this kind of an attitude towards an ahankara that is trying to be an obstructionist. Okay? All right. So now we come to that portion of Srinivas's question which deals with pretension. That perhaps I need to pretend that I am the ahankara in dealing with the people. Like, you have an office and your boss doesn't understand what you're doing, what you're studying, nothing. Don't bother me with that. You've got to do this. And then there are issues with you get promoted or not promoted, whether you get a raise, not raise, right jobs, criticism, all of those kinds of things, if that's the case. So the question is, shouldn't I now, what role do I play in my ahankara? Should I pretend that I am okay with that, inwardly knowing this is not? Where is the role of pretension versus non-pretension? So, what I would advise you is to not even look at it as a pretension. That doesn't appeal to me. Even though, sometimes Swami Dayanandji used to say this in making a point, fake it until you make it. Isn't that pretension? Yes, but it's not germane to the whole thing. There are better ways to look at it At least I understand, and even Swamiji also. There was just one example out of the many. Don't make that as your as the key thing in your life, that I have to pretend, I have to fake it, I have to fake it. No, it's not it. I think there is a better example, which is what I take to heart, which is the example of learning to swim or learning to ride a bike. How? Learning to swim, where you are not a natural swimmer yet. You're kind of like me. I'm not a natural swimmer. Every time I go into the water, I cannot last for more than a few seconds. I can perhaps cross, not even lengthwise, but widthwise, a small pool, maybe for about 15 seconds. And maybe I can take some breaths with some effort. In that kind of a situation, learning to swim is with effort, we are aware of the fact that I am not yet swimming, but I am working towards it. And if you keep doing it, after a while you swim without effort. Effortless swimming. This is exactly what a good swimmer has. I am just amazed. These kids, they're not even worried about drowning, or I am very worried about drowning. That's all I'm worried about. Will I get some water in my nose? And but the kids don't worry about it. They can go down, they can come up, and breathing is not a problem. They know exactly when to breathe. It's an effortless swimming. So what I would say is that the model that we should have is, until this becomes natural for me, I practice being a karta and a bhokta, a doer and an enjoyer or sufferer. And it all is based on the ahankara. So my understanding is very limited, because I make an effort in my life to be a good person to myself and to others. It takes some effort to do it. If you keep on doing it, and this, by the way, is the message of Bhagavad Gita's Karma Yoga. In fact, I will address directly to Srinivas and to any one of you that is interested. Kindly go through carefully the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The whole discussion is on this alone. And don't just read the verses and then just go on. Get into some depth into each one of them. My recommendation is that you need to have, at least my knowledge is, either take the Shankara Bhashya with its commentary, or Shankarananda's Bhashya, which I think is much more detailed, with its commentary, on the 3rd chapter, 43 verses. And how do you do karma? So there the karma is, it is not pretending. There's no pretending there at all. There's not a single word on pretension. What it is you do the karma by doing Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. So let's spend a few more minutes on that, and then I think we're pretty much done with it. What is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi? Doing karma for Ishvara. Very important for us to really understand this very well. We'll spend some more time on it later. So there's one of two things that you can get out of this word, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Not pretension. Do not do the karma for specific individuals. That I am doing it for my boss, or that I am doing it for my family because I don't like my job, but I have to keep at it because my family will starve if I don't work. This is with keeping your family in view, or your boss in view, or yourself in view. Instead, do it with Ishvara in view. And what do you mean by Ishvara in view? How would you do that? This is where your prarabdha karma comes in. The same old discussion that we had before. You do it for the Ishvara, saying, at this point in time, this is what is expected of me. Let me do the best possible job. Cognizant of the fact that Ishvara designed your life for you at this point in time. At all points in time, but what it manifests for you is the prarabdha karma. Keep that in mind all the time. This is one way to look at it, and I'll present the second way of looking at it, and then I will combine those two. So if you want, you can look at it as an external Ishvara who is the Sarvagyaha, Sarvashaktiman, Sarvavyapakaha, is everywhere. He's in charge of the whole thing. This is how life is unfolded. This is how the prarabdha karma has come. This is one way of looking at it. Okay? The other way of looking at it is that the Ishvara is nothing but you. No, but not nothing, but nobody except you. It is not just Parameshvara, it is Paramatma. And so, instead of pretending, if you just do the work for making sure that you discover the beauty and the strength and the wisdom and the joy of your own Atma, if you want to really discover that, then don't get hung up in transactional truth. Because there is something much more valuable to discover than the transactional. You may get some temporary, you'll get some pratyaksha phalam. If you do well, if you have attitude, is really Swami Dayanand used to say that really if you see it, you can encapsulate karma phala as quote unquote attitude. The whole life is nothing but attitude. You have the right attitude, it will be for your own good, not for somebody else's good. Somebody might praise you and say, oh, that person has a very good attitude. Okay, so what does it mean? It might make you feel good for some time. But the much more important thing is that you like yourself. You are discovering the beauty of Atma, which is Paramatma, as yourself. So I'll end this whole thing by saying that the Paramarthika Sat, the beauty of the Atma, Paramatma, is kind of covered by a wooden plank, if you may. There is a treasure inside of it. I just came up with that. there is a treasure inside, and it is covered by a wooden plank, kind of like a wooden lid. And the wooden lid needs to be removed in order for you to see the treasure that you are. Okay? Now what happens is that if you stick to the transactional truth, and instead of becoming at ease with prarabdha karma, you try to make things different by your own effort. This is what is called kamya karma. Changing jobs, visiting places, making new friends. This is the normal kind of a thing in our life. Kamya karma. Things are not very well with me and I need to change it, do this, that or the other. If you do that, you are putting more nails in that wooden lid that will not open. Already it is shut tight, and you're making it worse by making even tighter that you cannot find the treasure inside. You're hurting yourself. So therefore, what I would say is that Srinivas, you are right that you just have Sharira Yatra and all those kinds of things is the right way to look at it. I think a better way to look at that is that do not be concerned about your life because it is to a degree unpredictable because of prarabdha karma. What is going to happen, we don't know. Something will be revealed to you. Whatever the prarabdha karma is, be at ease with it. Knowing that Paramatma himself signed off on it. Parameshwara himself signed off on it. Yep. This is his life. And if you do that, you begin to loosen the nails from which this treasure has been hidden by the lid, I think, in my view. And pretty soon you will see that the lid becomes so loose that if you keep on trusting the prarabdha karma and not making it any worse, and you begin to understand this whole thing is nothing but a dream, then the inner light begins to shine through. And you become much more ease with yourself, not wanting to be anything else, not wanting to be impressive to anyone. You are already fine. You just have to discover it. And that discovery is best done by having the ahankara play the role of accepting the prarabdha karma. So anyway, I'm happy you asked that question, and I think I thought about all these things just a couple of hours ago when I was preparing for the class, and I thought we would take a look at that. Okay. So now let us continue on with the Gyanankusham, and we will take up verse number 3 today. We already finished verse number 2 last time, and there's a lot of beautiful thoughts in there. I would say that each of these 25 verses can be seen to be, there are a couple of ways to look at it. both are, you can choose either one of them. The 25 verses are like bitter pills to swallow. I would say even it's kind of like the Ayurvedic medicine, kashaya, which is not in a pill. The traditional Ayurveda is that you just take a concoction which is very bitter and you swallow it. So each of the 25 verses that are in this, I don't know if we'll go through all 25 or not, but whichever number we pick, is like a bitter pill. And a bitter pill is something which will be difficult to swallow, but it is for your own good. Because this has been given by Ishvara, who doesn't want to make a mistake. There's no mistake. Our local Ayurvedic doctor can make a mistake. He can wrongly diagnose your malady. Not so Ishvara. And so all these ideas come really from Ishvara. And so each of the 25 verses can be looked on as a bitter pill. Another way to look upon that is that, there is in the police in India, do you know that the police in India do not have guns? I think there are special riot police or maybe some captains or something that I don't know for a fact, but I do know that the average policeman that you see on the streets does not carry a gun. He cannot carry a gun. It's a very beautiful thing to see. That the people that they are protecting also don't have guns, and the police also don't have guns. This is very different in this country. And here the police have to have guns because a good part of the people that they are controlling also have guns. So they have to have guns. Very sad situation that the whole culture is gun oriented. And the problem with this is that when something goes wrong, the result can be death. And often is. Even in the home there are accidents. Or you take a little student who borrows the father's gun and goes to a school and shoots 15, 20 people. So this is a very sick society in my view, which is supposed to be a shining star, a very well-developed country. In India is just poor and supposedly uneducated and so on. But look at this. In India, the police carry a lathi, what is called a lathi in North India. I don't know what the southern Indian names would be. But it is a very robust carved stick which is like 6 feet tall. It's higher than the policeman, or maybe the same height as a policeman. Yeah, it's about a good 1 inch thick lathi. This is what they have. And what happens to this lathi is that if there is some disturbance, if there is some andolan, some kind of a protest or something, at best they will use the lathi on people. They will first of all push them away, but if they are really being very berserk, they might hit them. But it might hurt you, but it won't kill you, generally speaking. Possible it may kill you, but not so. So this is what is called a lathi. So a lathi is a hurtful thing, like a bitter pill. This is a lathi. So each of the 25 verses should be considered to be a lathi, because when we misbehave, what needs to be done is that the nature or the jnanam, the knowledge. It's the knowledge, Gyanankusham. So the knowledge acts as a lathi for you, hits you. Don't do that. It's for your own good. So anyway, this is the way to look at it. It's kind of like a danda, what is also called a danda. All right, this one, number 3, is a especially strong danda. And as we go through this, I hope we can finish it today itself. As we go through this, you will see this is an exceptionally strong danda or an exceptionally bitter pill. Okay, so let's read it. In verse number 3 it says, so I'll start with the exact Hindi quote and then translate it. मेरी कोई गलती नहीं, बिना कारण ही लोग मुझसे असूया क्यों करते हैं? ऐसा भी नहीं सोचना चाहिए, बल्कि यह विचार करना चाहिए कि पूर्व जन्म में मैंने मोक्ष प्राप्त नहीं किया, यह मेरा घोर अपराध है। मेरी कोई गलती नहीं, बिना कारण ही लोग मुझसे असूया क्यों करते हैं? ऐसा भी नहीं सोचना चाहिए, बल्कि ये विचार करना चाहिए कि पूर्व जन्म में मैंने मोक्ष प्राप्त नहीं किया, यह मेरा घोर अपराध है। What it means is, I have done nothing wrong, just minding my own business, and in fact I do good to others. Despite that, why do people blame me, criticize me, and wrongly look upon me? Why? If I have done something wrong, then I can understand somebody blaming me. Understandable. But if I am a good person, not really harming anybody, how come I have problems that people give me? Why do they criticize me? Which happens all the time. This verse says, don't think like that. Don't think like that. You have not done anything wrong, therefore people are out to get you. Why not? You have done plenty of wrong things in your previous life. It is not just what you have been doing in this life for the last 10 minutes or hour or 2 hours or 2 years or 10 years. That's not it. There is a huge sanchita karma, as we saw in the discussion on the ahankara, which is yet to fructify, and it is fructifying. It is hard to get around to it. Why? Why do people, I'm okay, I'm a good person. Why am I being punished? You think you are a good person. If you knew all the things that you had done under the iceberg, you are just looking at the surface of the iceberg. Here's number 1. Do you know what to do with the truth? This is not me talking, I'm just telling you. If you read, those of you that can read Hindi, you can read this whole thing. He says, do you know something? And this, by the way, is presented at various points. So this is just a very beautiful example of encapsulated in a story, but the same point is presented by the Shastra at various places. We had so many choices of understanding who God is, what is what am I made out of? Who is protecting me? Whose whose creation this is, who is behind all this, who is the ashraya, which is the substratum of this whole thing. In so many lives, I had a chance to grow and to understand. But I remain ignorant, childish, refusing to mature, refusing to grow up. And the punishment for that is I have to go through another complete life. Isn't it a dosha? Isn't it a defect on my part? If I was an animal that did not have a chance to even understand what's going on, then it is understandable. But if you were a human being that could think and to learn and to grow and be mature and be free, and if you refuse to do that, isn't that a defect? Should you not get a punishment for that? And yes, you do, because you have to go through the same problem all over again. Here the punarjanma, the rebirth, is considered to be just a stupidity. You're cooped up for 9 months in the womb of your mother. You can't even talk, you cannot breathe, you cannot do anything. You're like in a jail. And then after you're born, it takes so much effort for you to even open your eyes, to talk, to walk, leave aside learning. And how many problems you have in growing up. And then you need to have a kind household to take care of you, mother. You're so dependent. It takes so long for you to become independent, to be able to think for yourself and to take care of yourself. And by that time, the life is already gone. And you keep postponing it, looking for small pleasures here and there. And again, another life is gone. Another soul cycle. You don't consider that to be a defect? Have you even thought about that? You are saying, I've been very good to people. I went to that person. I said hello to the person, and he didn't return the hello to me. What's wrong with me? I say hello and I say hello to people. I'm very nice to them. Have you forgotten all the problems that you've created for yourself in your previous life up to this point? So don't try to be a dramatist that, I've been good to people and then people don't like me and so on and so forth. Forget it. They have every right to do so. What is it? Transactional? Everything has to be equal at any transaction? No, this is a huge thing. You could have done something wrong to people and they were nice to you. Did you ever consider that? This is the trend. This is what this particular verse is all about. So here it says that that because of my previous karmas, this is not a small wrong action. I have failed to take countless remedial actions to correct my actions. And this is the result to blame. So don't say that I got wrapped for no reason. Here's a beautiful example that Swami Maheshananji gave. He says there was a French general. And very interesting, many of these generals when they put on their uniform in the morning to go to the office, so there will be a chauffeur which will say, "Morning, sir." And this general says, "Good morning." So he's got a chest full of medals. Chest full of medals. And so wherever he goes, he can imagine these are his whole chest must feel so. And this is not just French general, but this particular example is for a French general. But all these army and air force generals, their chest is full of these heavy medals, metal medals. So he was going to give a talk to someone. So one of the correspondents, one of the people from a local TV station just said, "Sir, can I just ask you a question? How did you get these 25 medals? And you're only like 35 years of age or 40 years of age, and you're a lieutenant general, and you got 25 medals? How?" He says, "Can I tell you a secret?" He said, "You see this big one right here?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "This is the only one I deserve, because I led an army and we had a skirmish against our opponents, and I led them, and I was given this. Once I was given this, all the other 24 of them are honorary medals. Whenever I would give a talk, they'll say, 'Sir, can we please put a medal for our institution on your chest?' So I said, okay. So he says, really, these are all, what is it called? Honorary medals. The real one is only one. So similarly here, he says, I get the main medal by being born. Taking a shape and actually paying for not freeing myself in the previous life is the big medal. It's the big defect. This is the big defect. This is my dosha, pradosha. Everything else, all the other transactions are like honorary doshas. You see, this is an interesting thing. When you do some bad things to people, through your bad attitudes, or you are impatient, or so on and so forth, that is nothing in comparison to the main dosha that you were even born. Imagine, this is called the big danda. This is the big lathi. You must be thinking, what? That my being born is, I created that problem? Can I tell you something? Shastra says, yes, this is the big problem. And can you please recognize that you don't do this again? Can you please can you look for Ishvara and find him? Shouldn't this be your main challenge in life? Instead of becoming a vice president here and director there and a rich man there and this, that, or the other? How trivial it is. Don't you see this? This is the main defect, is to be born. So now, 8:58, I think we have enough time to go through this. So in this verse, there is a word called asuya. Asuya. Where is it? Does it come in the Hindi translation? Yeah. He said, मेरी कोई गलती नहीं, बिना कारण ही लोग मुझे असूया क्यों करते हैं? So this word asuya is a very interesting word and important for us to understand. Asuya means considering a good quality to be defect is called asuya. To take a good quality, like that you are saying good to somebody, and the person really gives you a dirty look and saying, what are you doing for me? Just get away. You are trying to do good, and to take that as some kind of a defect is called asuya. Several examples. So, it is very well known that we Hindus, Vaidikas, one of our biggest gunas, our biggest quality, best quality is forgiveness, is shama. And for 800 years, this is the very, you will all recall this, in the Bangladesh war, when we soundly defeated Pakistan, and in the Shimla Accord, instead of being forthright and at least getting something in back for this, Indira Gandhi just gave everything away. He released the Pakistanis. There could have been a very good opportunity for us to get something back in Kashmir. Didn't do it. Because one of the very endemic gunas of Hindus is Kshama. And it is very well known that in the 800 years, when the Mughals came in and the Muslims invaded India and captured it, it was all done because any time an army would get defeated, we'll forgive them. They took advantage of that. Okay, so this is very well known. This is not a controversial thing. Hindus just don't believe in punishing bad deeds. Whatever happens, happens. God will take care of him. Let them go. This is our attitude. Okay? Now, the current people that analyze this don't see this as a strength. They see this as a weakness. And to a large extent, I think, reasonably so. You look at the history and people say we have been patsies. We have allowed such a great civilization to perish, all because of our gunas, which is not a guna, which is actually a defect. This is called asuya. Looking at a guna as a defect is called asuya. Similarly, we Vaidikas, we Hindus, believe in Ishvara's countless forms. Anything in this world is nothing but Ishvara. This is interesting. If you look at the Hindu belief and so on, as you know very well, I'm not telling you anything new, I'm just reminding you, everything in this whole creation is supposed to be sacred. Even a mountain, water, all animals, not just human, everything is because it's a manifestation of Ishvara. Okay? So this should be seen as a guna. It's not seen as a guna. People that believe in Ekadevata Vadas, called Ekadevata Vada. This is called Bahudevata Vadas. That Ishvara has many forms. It can be the form of a deer or a tiger or an elephant or a human being. This is nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara. And even rivers and mountains and clouds and sun, nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara. Whole thing is is nothing but Vasudeva Kutumbukam. But people that are Ekadeva Vadas don't see that as a guna. They see it as a dosha. How? Haven't you really gotten questions from people? Why do you have so many gods? Don't you think it should be one God? So the Hindus are being vilified as stupid people, still clinging to Stone Age. Grow up and become sophisticated and understand that there is a single God. And other people believe and have a different way of looking at it. The Christians have now become very sophisticated about it. We need to educate the Hindus. We have to really help them, bring them to the church. Muslims, on the other hand, they believe in destruction, but they also believe in a single devata. And so this guna of the Hindus is considered to be a dosha, asuya. Same thing on the varna system. In our Shastra it is written that the Ishvara thought it will be a nice whole, as we studied in the Purusha Sukta, that it will be a very nice thing where there are people that complement each other. Anytime you have a complex body, then different parts have to be made that have their own gunas. The legs need to be very strong. Hands have to be a very different one. Stomach is different. The heart is different. The mind is different. Everything is complementary in order for the body to work properly. So the Varna system where we have Brahmana, Kshatriya, all that is exactly like that. Let people specialize in different things based on whatever their propensity is. This is a guna. And instead, all we get criticized for is the caste system. Why can't you people be growing up? Why are you clinging to the caste system? Asuya. Same thing on, for example, the question is, why does this happen? Why do people see? Well, of course, for their own good, whatever their agraha is, whatever their belief system is, they want to really further it and not criticize themselves, but anybody else. So one thing is, Swami Maheshananji pointed this out, he says, if you tell somebody about the strengths of people, gunas of people, it looks boring to you. Oh, it's okay. But if you criticize someone for their doshas, it makes you feel better. Because you feel that I also have some kind of a dosha and I want others to also have the same dosha. This is my interpretation of current one. No one sings the praises of the Modi government as being anti-corrupt, clean. Not everybody it's possible, but at least at the very top level, starting with Mr. Modi, Prime Minister, clean, no corruption. We have had corruption for hundreds of years. And finally we get somebody who is... Do you think anybody is really singing praises about that? Oh, no, he says okay. But if you find a minister, like this has happened in Sri Lanka, where this is an amazing thing. Have you ever seen this? I had no idea until I saw this recently. This Rajapaksha government, the eldest brother is the Prime Minister, the younger brother is the President, and the other brother is the Finance Minister. The whole family controls the entire country. And when that happens, quite frankly, this for the last couple of days, I'm glued to it. I want to see. I want these people out. Because to see a defect in someone else is fascinating. If there is a clean government in somewhere, you don't even bother about it. Swami Maheswaranji gave a very good example, and also Swami Dayananda also said the same thing. He says, and I'll end with that pretty much. So suppose you, not end, I have a couple of more things, but I think I can finish it in the next 5-7 minutes. So here's the thing. Supposing you go to somebody's place and they've invited you for dinner and so on. So before dinner they'll say, what would you like to drink? So if you say, just something, just water. Or you say, okay, if you feel that, okay, coconut water. Give me some coconut. Oh, coconut water. Okay, that's good. That's fine. But supposing the person comes to you and say, I make the best cocktails. I use the best liquor. Would you like to have some? And if you say no, they'll say, why? They don't say, why do you have water? But if you refuse a stiff drink full of alcohol, he gets insulted. Hey, I make the best cocktails. Don't you drink? So what can you say? If you say completely, no, I don't drink, that is a stupid thing to do. You can't do that. You can't say you drink because you don't. So at most you can say, you know what, I prefer just maybe, if you want, just give me just a teeny bit of wine or something, but I really don't drink. I don't drink at all. And so the person says, why don't you drink? What's wrong with it? And Swami Dayananda used to say that, he says that, have you ever seen a professor of physics knock on your door and say, I am Stuart Richardson from Berkeley Physics Lab, and I want to teach you how the quantum mechanics is. Has it happened? No. But you can get a minister, a Mormon minister, knock on your door and say, can I give you some literature about Mormonism? Why? Why is that? Why not the professor of physics, and why the Mormon person? It is because the more Mormons there are, the better you feel as a Mormon. For a physics professor, it doesn't matter if there are other physics or not. If you want to learn, please come. Enroll yourself. But I am not insecure. But we are insecure because we have our own defects and we want others to be equally defective. They're also born in this life. You're also born in this life. This is a huge defect. Anyway, so this is one part of it. So now another last one, because there is a word called bhava. The one that is born is called bhava. Bhava is a very complex word. It has both bhu-sattayam or bhavati. The truth behind it is also called bhava. Bhagavan is called bhava. And the one that is born is called bhava. Now here's the difference. Anything that is born, and for someone to take the birth at its face value and cling to it it smacks of ignorance. It's a defect. As we've been saying it, so I'm just giving you another argument for it. So here the example given is very beautifully done in this section here also. That gold is not a defect. But if you have an ornament born out of the gold, and for you to only admire the ornament but not the shining gold that it is made out of, is a defect. So in that sense also, the birth is a manifestation of non-understanding. Because I don't understand what I am made out of, what is my swarupa. Instead, I'm clinging on to transactional truth which was born and will go. So please don't say that I don't have any defect, I am doing good for others and so on. You have created the biggest defect there is to be born, like this medal. And all others are really small compared to that. This is the lathi that we should take. If we are wise, we look at it as a fact. If we are not, we'll say, why is he saying things like that? Anyway, so this is the nature of the Gyanankusham that I see. All right, with that we are finished with verse number 4, verse number 3. And each week what I will do is to look at the next verse and see whether it is good for us to talk about, or maybe I can gloss over some of them, I don't know. But each one of them is a gem that I consider to be a gem. Anyway, asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavashishyate om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good to see you all. Wonderful. I'll wait to see if you had any specific questions that I can answer. Yeah, I thought that it would be good to take this particular text, which is it is different from the normal Vedantic texts. It has some life's lessons as we see them. So it's a different view of the sadhana. And so after we are done, we will go back to some more things. But it's a good change as a Vedantic insight. So, all right, I don't see any other questions per se. So with that, I take your leave, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Om.